What's happening, fam? L.A.R movement still moving. Book is entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father at Amazon Kindle and CreateSpace. A link will be in the description box below as usual. This video is entitled Toxic Ego. Ego, a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. Other synonyms: self-esteem, self-importance, self-worth, self-respect, self-image, self-confidence. And I got to talk about this in a sense because what we're having an issue with in America is overly inflated egos. People talk about toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, but we really don't get into the human aspect of a lot of people just have a toxic ego. A lot of people have we are built in a society now where it doesn't take much. You don't need much skill, much talent to be considered good or great at something. You can be mediocre and great. So now you have people with mediocre skill levels and mediocre talent who have these massive egos. And I'm not talking about like famous people. I'm talking about average, everyday people. So the ego becomes toxic because you feel like you've done more than other people when you've done some just regular stuff. So you go out in public and you're telling people how great you are and how you're on this level and everybody else is beneath you. But your accomplishments don't say that. Where you came from to where you at doesn't say that you did much. But your ego says, I'm the best. I'm ranked number 1, which means I am the best. Oh, Mr. T, Rocky thing. So you're interacting with people, we're meeting people, we're getting into relationships or dating people or getting to know people who have an extreme level of toxicity because, you got people who are drowning in debt and who are overspending, but because they buy certain stuff that's expensive, their ego says, I'm better than you. See, they can have on better brands than you and less money than you, but their brands make them a better human being than you. It's toxic. You have people who have toxic ego because self-confidence. They're not the best person. They haven't worked on self-improvement, but their self-confidence is sky high, and they don't think they look crazy when you're walking around here as not your best self around people who are their best self, but you're trying to put on a stoic air of superficial importance. Like I'm better than all of you who are the best that you can be, and I'm just mediocre, and you get on my level. Like, no, that's a toxic ego. It's summertime, so people worked out all spring to get their beach body ready, and then you got people who got their beach well body ready, and they walking around like, oh, ain't I sexy? Don't you wish your girlfriend was hot like me? And they just, yeah. It's like, no, you date people who are toxic egos. Like, I'm doing you a favor by you being out with me, and in your mind, you like, when you get to know a person, you like, your mouth saying that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, but you below average as a motherfucker. And it comes out in this. When people have these toxic egos, which I think most of society has now, you could talk it, but you can't walk it, And what winds up happening is people talk to, like, old coach used to say, don't let your alligator mouth write a check that your canary ass can't cash. And we got a lot of people with an alligator mouth. And because they got an alligator mouth, you can't get out of the situations that your ego got you into. So now you stuck because it's time to show and prove, and a lot of people don't have the skills to prove it. So that same toxic ego gets bruised real easily. We got a lot of fragility in America right now, where people talk like winners, but they can't. But they always taking losses when it's time to prove it. And it's kind of like when you always pointing the finger, blaming other people for a situation that you created. That's a toxic ego, because your ego said you can do it all. You're the greatest. You're unstoppable. You're the juggernaut, bitch. But once you ran into the wall, you had a concussion because you can only run 2.5 miles an hour and you're not that big. And then it's like, reality slaps you in the face. And then it's the wall's fault, but not you for running into the wall at 2.5 miles an hour. Because egos are toxic. To the point where, excuse me, you have a toxic self-worth because of that ego. People feel like they're bringing more to the table than they actually are. Because I came into your life, I came into in whatever way I'm talking, I made your life better. And then because you're kind of out of it, like, you think if you leave, this person is going to fall on their face. And normally what happens is people with these toxic egos, they bring their toxicity to whatever, in whatever direction that they're going in, and they actually drag it running into the mud. And then they say, well, you'll never make it without me. And then they leave, and the person just skyrockets because now they don't have you holding them back and holding them down. And because your self-worth, and delusional mentality, what winds up happening is everywhere you go, you are the victim of somebody else's doing. But everybody that has survived you does better after you're gone, and you keep doing worse. But it's still their fault. And we always say the common denominator in situations is you. And if you're toxic in every situation that you're involved in, then it's you. The spring water didn't look like piss until you pissed in it. It was you. So that's the problem. Another thing that I was thinking about along these lines, because egos have become so toxic, the work ethic has become toxic too, because you feel like work is beneath you. It's everybody else's responsibility to fix everything around you, because your ego has you so far up in the clouds that you don't have to participate in your own life. You don't have to work at your own success. You don't have to be responsible for your own failures. That's what everybody else around you is for. They're just here at your beck and call. You are the king or the queen of the universe, and everybody else is just your minions. But when it's time to, but when these people say enough is enough, be the king or the queen of your kingdom and the universe on your own, you get very, very fragile, because you're faced with the reality that, you got to pay the cost to be the boss. And toxic egos never want to pay the cost. You know, it's always got to be perfect. If it's not perfect, it can't be done. You can't make, toxic egos can't make something out of nothing. Toxic egos can't adjust. And toxic egos can't turn a negative into a positive. And we don't think about, you know, I used to talk about this trophy society where everybody gets a trophy for a participation trophy. We don't realize how that type of behavior and ideology over the past 10, 20 years have made our society toxic. Because not everybody feels like they're the MVP, but they don't do MVP stuff. They don't do MVP stuff. You know, everybody thinks their role is just as important when it's not. You overvalue your actual work, so to the point where you don't have to improve, which ultimately sabotages you in the long run. So, you know, I be thinking about stuff. So this is what it is, you know. So y'all have a good day. God bless. Good night. We out.